The chains bite deeper when I breathe. Iron and moonlight. That's all my world has been for 6 days and 7 sleepless nights. The air here tastes of rust and silence, thick with old screams that never found their way out. Somewhere above me the moon must be full tonight. I can feel her pull through the stone, like a cruel reminder that freedom still exists. Just not for me. They call this place the Underhall, Bloodcrest's lowest dungeon. The air never moves, and the walls whisper names of the dead when the torches burn too low. I used to think those stories were meant to scare pups into obedience. Now I know they were warnings. My wrists ache from the weight of the manacles. The metal has carved its name into my skin, branding me with its cold, merciless memory. I can still feel the echo of his voice when he gave the order. Chain her. Kael Stormbane. The Alpha of Bloodcrest. Once his name used to sound like safety. Now it feels like a sentence. When the guards dragged me in, mud clinging to my torn dress, I didn't resist. What would have been the point? I had run for 3 years, through forests and rivers and blood, but fate has a cruel way of looping back to the same man. The same eyes, the same scent that once made my heart race, now makes my wolf cower. I hear footsteps above. Heavy, controlled. I don't need to see him to know who it is. I'd know that rhythm anywhere, the sound of an alpha who never falters, whose presence bends the air around him. The door creaks open, spilling silver light into my cell. And there he is. Kael. The sight of him steals my breath the way fire steals air. Tall, broad shoulders dusted with moonlight, the same eyes. Molten gold rimmed with rage and something else I can't name. His jaws sharper than I remember, beard rougher, hair darker. Years of rule have turned him harder, colder. He steps closer, boots echoing on the stone, until the scent of cedar and storm fills my lungs. Gods, I'd forgotten how it feels to breathe him in. I want to hate it. I want to turn away. But my wolf, my traitorous wolf whimpers inside me. Mira. His voice is the same, low, dangerous, roughened by command. Hearing my name in his mouth feels like sin. I lift my head, forcing myself to meet his gaze. Alpha. He flinches. Barely, but I see it. The title is a wall between us now, one I built the night I ran. Tell me, he says, each word measured like a blade. Where is the pup? The pup. He says it like a curse, like something stolen from him. My heart stops. The air turns to knives. I want to tell him the truth, that I never meant for any of this to happen, that the night I ran, I wasn't running from him. I was running from what they would have done to his blood if they knew I carried it. But I can't. Not yet. I don't know what you mean, I whisper, even as my pulse betrays me. Kael moves closer, crouching down so his eyes level with mine. The torchlight turns his irises into gold fire. Don't lie to me, Mira. My scouts saw you near the western border. You weren't alone. He's close enough that I can feel the heat radiating off him. His hand brushes the chain at my throat, not rough, not gentle, just testing. And when his fingers graze my skin, the bond buried deep in my soul flares. The mate bond. After all these years, it's still alive. He feels it too. I see it in the way his pupils dilate, his nostrils flare, his breath falters for half a heartbeat before he forces the alpha mask back on. You're trembling, he says softly. Afraid? Not of you. The lie tastes bitter. He chuckles, a hollow, dangerous sound. Then you've forgotten what I'm capable of. His hand falls away, leaving my skin burning in its absence. He stands, turning away, pacing like a predator, deciding whether to kill or to play. You betrayed your pack, he says, voice tightening. You ran. You consorted with rogues, and now rumors spread that you hide a child. My patience has limits, his patience. I almost laugh. He doesn't know that I've lived on patience and fear for 3 years, hiding a heartbeat that matched his, watching a boy with golden eyes grow beneath the shadows of the border forests. Do what you must, I say quietly. You always do. He turns sharply, eyes flashing. Do not test me. I meet his fury with silence. Silence is the only weapon I have left. For a long time he says nothing. Just stands there, staring at me, at the scars on my wrists, the dirt on my dress, the ruin of what I used to be. Then, so quietly I almost don't hear, "Why didn't you tell me, Mira?" Something in his tone breaks me a little. It's not anger this time. It's grief, but I can't give in. If I do, the council will smell weakness. They already think I'm a traitor. If they knew about the child, they'd hunt him. I lower my gaze, whispering, "You wouldn't have believed me." Kael exhales, slow and sharp. "You were my mate. I would have believed anything." I close my eyes because I can't bear the look in his. Once that gaze made me feel invincible. Now it just hurts. He walks to the cell door, pauses. "The council wants you dead," he says finally. "They think you conspired with rogues to weaken the pack." "And you?" I ask softly. He doesn't answer. That's worse than a yes. When he leaves, the door slams shut, and the silence that follows feels heavier than the chains. Hours pass. Maybe days. Down here, time bleeds into nothing. Sometimes I sleep, but mostly I dream with my eyes open. Of the night it all began. The night I learned I was carrying his pup. It was the last night I saw the northern lights. We'd gone hunting near the Frost River. The world was white and endless. Kael's laugh had echoed through the trees, chasing away the cold. He'd pulled me close by the fire, his breath warm against my neck, his hand on my belly like he already knew. But when dawn came, so did the council's decree. Omegas could not bear alpha blood. It was law, ancient, cruel, absolute. The child of an alpha and an omega would be seen as a threat to the hierarchy. So I ran. I remember his voice calling after me through the snow. I remember not looking back. And now here we are again. Him above, me below. The world between us made of chains and lies. A sound breaks the stillness. A low growl, deep and feral. For a moment, I think it's in my head. Then I realize it's coming from outside the cell. Kael. He's back. The door opens again, but this time he doesn't step in. He just stands there watching me. His wolf is close to the surface. I can feel the energy crackling around him. "You still lie," he says. "Even when your heartbeat betrays you." He moves closer. The air grows thick. My wolf stirs, pushing against my chest, torn between fear and longing. "I could force it out of you," he murmurs. "One command and you'd spill every secret." "Then do it," I whisper. "Show me what your mercy costs." He freezes. I see the flicker in his eyes. The alpha, the mate, the man. 3 beasts fighting for control. "You think I haven't tried?" He growls softly. "You think I don't wake up every night hearing your voice?" I swallow hard, tears burning behind my eyes. "You shouldn't have come." "I didn't come for you," he says. But the way his eyes linger on me tells another story. For a long moment, neither of us moves. The air hums between us, full of unsaid things. Then he turns to leave. Before the door closes, I whisper, "Kael." He stops. "Your instincts are right," I say, heart pounding. "There's a pup, but if you love your pack, don't look for him." The door slams, and his scent lingers. Cedar, storm, heartbreak. That night I dream of the pup again. His small hands, his golden eyes, his laughter like sunlight breaking through rain. And I wake with a single thought pounding in my chest. If Kael ever finds him, he'll know. He'll scent it instantly. Because the boy smells like storm and smoke and moonlight. He smells like his father. As dawn seeps through the cracks in the dungeon ceiling, I whisper to the silent air, "Please, don't let him find us." Not yet, but deep inside, a smaller voice answers. The voice of my wolf, soft and trembling. He already has. And somewhere far above, I swear I hear a howl, fierce, broken, claiming. The alpha has remembered his mate, and the hunt has begun. Stone keeps secrets better than hearts do. It swallowed my words last night, dulled my breathing, drank my tears until there was nothing left to give the dark. But memory is a cruel lantern. It lights what I don't want to see and refuses to go out. When the torches hiss into life along the corridor and the rats pause like tiny shadows with eyes, I realize I haven't slept at all. I've just been reliving, wearing grooves into the same old hurt like a river against rock. Somewhere above, a bell tolls once. Dawn or a warning? In Bloodcrest, the difference is thin. I curl my hands as far as the manacles allow. My wrists are stiff maps of last night's trembling. He asked me a question I've spent 3 years answering in silence. Where is the pup? He said it like a threat, and my ribs learned new ways to press against air that wouldn't move. Yet buried under his command, under the iron timbre of his voice, I heard something I haven't heard since the Frost River. My name, prayed without words. Mira. It doesn't matter, I tell myself. It cannot matter. Alphas are good at making oaths sound soft. The council is better at turning them into law. Law is always louder than love. Bootsteps, 2 sets. The guards who brought me down the first night were sloppy with their keys and their jokes. These ones move like script, their rhythm drilled into the bone. The first is thick-shouldered with a broken nose and scars that map across his jaw in poorly stitched lines. The second is leaner, eyes like mirrors that reflect only what they are told to. They stop outside my cell and glance in as if I'm a stain they're measuring for removal. Alpha. Wants her alive, says Broken Nose. He sounds disappointed about it, Council. Wants her to speak first, says Mirrors. He wears the same disappointment like a second skin. Alpha first, Broken Nose adds, as if it's a category of weather. He unlocks the door and steps aside. They chain my ankles to the wall and remove the wrist manacles just long enough for me to hold the tin cup of water and the heel of bread they push at me. The water tastes like old coins. The bread tastes like the memory of smoke. I eat anyway. Survival is not a noble thing. It's just small, steady choices. We'll be back, Mirrors says as he reseals the cuffs. He looks at me a heartbeat longer than necessary. Don't try anything. What could I try? My voice is coarse, grief-soaked. He flinches, as if being answered wasn't in the script. They go. Silence returns, bold and certain. My hands ache with the ghost of holding a weight that matters. A small hand warm with sleep. A little palm that fits inside mine as if it grew there. I press my forehead to the cold chain and let the thought complete itself. He has your eyes. It's a truth shaped like glass, clear, dangerous. I have never said it aloud, not even to the night. If I speak it, the world will hear. Bloodcrest hears everything that can be used. I try to think of anything else. Of the cottage near the western border, where I spent too many winter nights watching snow bury the doorway and listening to the wind sound like a wolf learning to cry. Of Leora's laugh in the summer, sharp and bright as a blade that loves you enough to cut your bindings. Of the way she set a bowl of soup in front of me the day I crossed her threshold with my belly bruised and my breath athread. Eat, she'd said then, before she even asked my name. We do questions after warmth. She was a healer before she was anything, before the council quarantined care inside rules. She stitched without asking whose blood spilled and brewed without asking who demanded the cure. When I started to show, she put the herbs into my hand, the ones that calm fear, the ones that steady sleep. When my son came, she put him onto my chest and said, in a voice that shook the way mountains do when they are remembering they used to be fire, breathe with him. And I did. It was like learning the shape of the world all over again. He came into the thin winter light with a roar of silence, wide-eyed, unafraid, staring at me as if he recognized the sound of my heartbeat from inside. I counted fingers and toes as if the council might send a messenger to accuse him of having too many. 10 and 10. I marveled at the serious little crease between his brows. I watched his eyes open fully. Gold. Not a question, not a maybe. A flare of sunlight in a room of snow. Kael's eyes, stamped onto a face that turned me into something I had never been allowed to be. Inevitable. He laughed first, before he cried, before he even learned the way hunger names itself. A small, startled sound like the moment a match decides it will be flame. Leora's breath hitched. Oh, she'd whispered. That one will bruise the moon with his joy. His scent came next. Smoke after rain, cedar rubbed between thumb and finger until resin warms and rises. The faint sharpness of storm wind. Every time I breathed him, the bond in me tugged like a ribbon being drawn through a ring. I learned how to swallow that tug. I learned how to braid my longing into lullabies. I learned where the borders patrol at night, and which trees don't tell the truth when you lean your weight against them. I learned 1,000 small ways to keep a secret alive. I thought I had learned enough. The corridor breathes. That's how it feels when Kael approaches. The stone pulling itself taller, the iron straightening, air laying down its back. The first time I noticed that was in the training yard, years and lives ago, when he stepped into the circle, and even the crows along the wall watched. The second time was the night he first kissed me and the wind forgot its direction. The third time is now. The guards open the door without announcing him. He fills the threshold like a verdict. He doesn't look at the manacles. He doesn't look at the corner where the water darkens the floor like a bruise. He looks at me as if the world is a rope with 2 ends and we are both pulling. Something has shifted in him since last night. His eyes are the same gold, but the edges of them look tired, like he stayed awake arguing with a ghost that knows his secrets. He steps inside, and the guards, to their credit, do not try to follow. The door closes. We are alone with the echoes of choices. "You're hurt," he says, and the softness in that observation makes me angrier than any threat. "I'm chained," I answer. "Hurt is part of the uniform." His jaw flexes. "I didn't order the cuffs for pain." "No," I say quietly. "You ordered them for control. Pain comes free." He looks at the manacles then, as if seeing them for the first time around me. Not an enemy, not a prisoner. His hands curl and then relax, caught between impulse and performance. He takes a breath as if he has rehearsed it. "The council meets at moonrise. They will ask whether you—" He stops, starts over. "They will ask me what you are. What I am." The words taste like rust. "Do they have a list?" "Omega, rogue, traitor, ghost." His gaze flickers. "Mate." The word slides into the room like a blade wrapped in velvet. It lands between us and hums. Heat crawls up my throat. "We are what law says we can be, Kael." His mouth twists. "Law forgets it was born from love. It thinks it is God. Law remembers power," I say. "It never forgets its own face." He looks at the manacles again, as if hoping they will say something wise. They don't. They are just circles of iron that believe in themselves too much. "Tell me what happened after you ran," he says. "Tell me why you didn't send word. A sign. Anything. Because your counsel would have salted the path behind the messenger. Because I saw a boy with your eyes in my dreams. And every time, hands reached for him that wore rings with the council's crest. Because the night after the decree, I watched a midwife dragged from her bed for refusing to report a mixed-born girl, and I knew love could get us both killed. Because I am brave only in the ways that keep him breathing. I survived," I say simply. He steps closer. The bond in me staggers to its feet, wild-eyed, as if it has been waiting in a corridor of my ribs, and suddenly smells air. He's close enough now that I can feel the weight of his attention like a cloak. He's close enough that if I were to close the last inch between us, my mouth would know the old language again, the one we invented, with the first rush of heat and the last patience. "Surviving is not the same as living," he says. "It's the only kind I was. Allowed," he repeats, as if the syllables are foreign. Then the alpha slides over him like a second skin. "You consorted with rogues." "Rogues consorted with me," I say. "There is a difference. They needed a healer without questions. I was a girl with too many answers. We traded. Herbs for silence. Guidance for distance." "Distance from me," he says. Not quite a question. "The council would have burned the miles if they had found them," I say. "I ran to keep the world from choosing for me." His nostrils flare. He studies me the way he studies a battlefield, mapping what to sacrifice and what to save. When he speaks again, his voice is lower, roughened by a truth he doesn't want to offer. There were other whispers. "Ignore them," I say. "The corridor breeds voices." "Not those," he says, and the word lands like a door locking. "Whispers of a child with golden eyes near the western border. A little scent of storm." He watches me flinch and doesn't press the wound. He simply exists inside it with me. "If the council hears even the ghost of that rumor, they will not stop with you." I close my eyes because keeping them open would be a confession. "Then you know why I ran. Why didn't you come to me?" He asks, and there it is. The ache underneath the anger. the boy who became alpha before his hands learned how to cradle gentleness without cracking it. Why didn't you let me tear the council apart for you? Because you would have, I whisper, and then they would have torn your pack apart for being led by a wolf who chooses a single heart over the law. You would have won me and lost everything else. He moves as if struck. You thought I would choose wrong. I thought you would choose me, I say. And I didn't want to be the reason your people suffered. I know what it costs to be loved by a king. Silence, then. The kind that unspools slowly from both of us like thread sucking back into a wound. He steps back, paces once, twice. When he turns, his eyes have changed. No less gold, more unguarded. I dreamed of a child last night, he says softly. The admission is careful, like laying out a blade and stepping away from it. I don't dream. I haven't since he stops. He doesn't say you left. He doesn't have to. The word hangs between us with its own heartbeat. He cried. The sound. It wasn't a cry. It was a calling, like a messenger. When I woke, I could still smell the rain. He laughs, but it has no mirth in it. Rage makes poor incense. It burns too fast. I feel something in me loosen. Not a knot. A noose. Kael, I say. I do not realize until after how long it has been since I allowed myself the softness of his name. It tastes like home and hunger. If there were a child, what would you do? Everything, he replies, with a ferocity that strikes the chain and makes it sing. I would wake the mountains and drag the moon closer and teach the law to kneel. My breath leaves me like a small animal escaping a trap. He hears it and closes the last step between us until the edge of his boot touches the edge of my bare toes. He doesn't touch me. He just lets the bond rise into the space, trembling like a deer at the edge of a meadow. His voice lowers. But I won't order you to tell me. I won't command what should be offered. I'm giving you the dignity the council would sell for a vote. I look up because there are 1,000 versions of him I have collected. The warrior, the judge, the boy in the river, the man above me half lit by firelight, and none of them are lying now. Dignity, I repeat. And it occurs to me that while I was learning to survive, he was learning to choose without the council's permission. The council calls it weakness, he says. The wolf calls it truth. My throat tightens. I should not love him more for this. I should not love him at all. But love is a river that remembers where to run even after you bury it. It finds the old bed and hums. Here. Here. Alpha, comes a voice at the door. Not the guard. A different cadence. Crisp, formal, older. The council is assembled. Kael doesn't look away from me. Tell them I'll come when I've decided what we are. A pause. The messenger obeys the tone, not the words, and retreats. Kael breathes out. The sound uncoils in the cell, turns the air warmer. He looks at my wrists again. Then slowly he removes a key from his belt. It is iron with a head shaped like a wolf's profile, older than his reign, older than his father's, as old as the first law that knew it would one day be misused. He slides the key into the lock on my left cuff. The click is loud enough to be a confession. He doesn't touch my skin when he draws the manacle away. He sets it down as if it could break. You will not run, he says. It's not a command. It's a wish wrapped in certainty. I won't run, I answer. It's not a promise. It's the truth. He frees my right hand, then kneels to undo the chain at my ankles. My muscles twitch when the iron leaves them, the body learning it was heavier than it admitted. I place my palms on the floor, breathing through the pins and needles lightening. He rises slowly, giving me the quiet dignity of struggling without a witness to the ugliness of it. When I stand, the room tilts and then rights itself. I sway. He moves without thinking. One step, a breath, his hand hovering near my elbow, not touching, just there. The bond shivers between us like a wire in wind. If I walk beside you into that hall, I say, will you believe me if I say nothing to them? I will believe you if you scream, he answers. I will believe you if you are silent. I will believe you if you lie, and I will find the shape of the truth under it. I will not abandon you to law that forgot how to be a servant. I swallow. This will cost you. Everything worth keeping has a price, he says. You taught me that when you ran. I expect anger to unfurl at that, or shame to bloom like a bruise. What rises instead is something smaller and stronger. Relief. He understood. Not then, but now. Now, when it can still save more than just us. Let me wash, I say, almost apologizing for the woman I've had to be in this cage. He nods. The guards bring a basin and a cloth and a small cake of soap that smells like lye and lemons. They watch the alpha watching me and keep their eyes on the floor. I kneel. The water clouds with dirt and old fear. I scrub the iron from my wrists as if I can erase its memory. Kael stands a step away, facing the door, making himself a wall where the door used to be. I catch my reflection in the water, a ghost with familiar eyes. Not gold, not storm. My eyes are the color of soil after rain. Leora once said it is the true color of life. You will grow things, she'd told me. The afternoon my son crawled across the rug to steal a wooden wolf from her shelf. In yourself and others. That's why law will fear you. I dry my hands on the thin cloth and look at Kael. You can't let them scent the bond, I say. Not yet. They'll move against you before you can move against them. They already have, he says softly. They just haven't signed their names to it. Then don't give them ink. His mouth tilts at one corner, part smile, part ache. Walk with me, Mira. My knees remember the manacles. My spine remembers I'm not wearing them now. I cross the cell. When I pass him, the bond surges like a tide dragged by a hungry moon. I steady myself with a breath. He opens the door. The corridor shies from the light in him. We step into it like a secret becoming a path. We do not touch. We do not speak. The guards move in front and behind with their templated steps, but the space between Kael and me buzzes louder than iron. We pass other cells. Some hold eyes, some hold absence. I do not look at them. Mercy hurts too much to be casual. We climb the colder stair, then the warmer one. The air remembers forests and windows. My skin remembers wind. When we reach the Great Hall's antechamber, Kael stops and turns. This is where you breathe, he says, and where I stop being a man and become a weapon. I don't know how much of me I can keep. Enough, I say. Keep enough, his eyes hold mine. The world narrows to a road between two gold fires. If I fail, he says, do not wait. Run, Leora. Western Road 3 valleys over. Take, he swallows. Take him, I nod. It feels like agreeing to cut my own name into 2 pieces. If you fall, I say, I will not let him grow up with a story that ends there. He exhales. The sound is tired and holy at once, and if I do not fall, then you will have to learn, I say, what it means to hold both a kingdom and a child without crushing either. A muscle jumps in his jaw. Teach me, my heart stumbles. I didn't say I would. His mouth curves, not quite a smile, more like a resolve discovering its own face. You didn't have to. The doors of the Great Hall stand before us, carved wolves racing in endless pursuit up their heights, eyes inlaid with amber that catches the morning. Behind them, the low thrum of voices arranging their version of the future. Kael lifts his hand. For a second, he doesn't push the doors. He just lets his palm rest there like a wolf testing the wind before stepping into the clearing. Then he looks at me, and something silent passes between our ribs. Not a command, a promise. The promise makes my wolf lower her head and bare her throat with a trust I thought I had buried beyond thaw. I straighten. I am still bruised, still thin, still wearing a dress that remembers mud and fear. But I am not chained. Not by iron. Not, for this breath, by the old story either. He pushes the doors. Sound floods us. Voices, rustling cloth, the scent of oil lamps and the faint austerity of stone polished with anxiety. The council sits in a crescent like a trap pretending to be a moon. Gray eyes, sharp noses, hands folded like nets. Kael steps forward. He does not announce himself. He is announcement. The hall shifts the way forests do when a storm arrives, reluctant and relieved. He walks until the silence has nowhere else to go and turns to face them. I stand at his left. Not behind, not before. I can feel the council measuring the position like tailors measuring a neck. Alpha Stormbane, says the High Counselor, a woman whose mouth looks like it has never been used for softness. You bring your guest. Mira, Kael says, the name a gospel and a threat. Mira, the High Counselor repeats, tasting it for teeth. There are charges. There are questions, Kael says, and you have already decided the answers. Truth can be decided, she says. Truth can only be found, he replies. And a ripple climbs the crescent. Shock, disdain, fear, fascination. He continues, voice even. You will not address her without permission. You will not command her to speak. You will not lay law on her body as if it is a field to be claimed. You will remember yourselves as servants of this pack, not its gods. And if we do not? Asks a narrow man 3 chairs to the right, fingers drumming a rhythm that smells like a trap. Kael turns his head. The movement is slow, controlled. The wolf inside it is not. Then you will learn the difference between a chair and a throne, he says. The hall breathes in collectively. The High Counselor's gaze flicks to me, then back. Her nostrils flare, the way wolves do when scent is a weapon. She smells the bond in the room and snarls so softly most would miss it. Forgive us, Alpha, she says, not asking for forgiveness at all. We were under the impression the law still governed here. It does, Kael says. I am the law, for as long as I remember why it exists. If there is a god of foolish hopes, it winks then, because for the first time since iron met skin, I believe he might win this, not by teeth, by choosing how to wear them. Proceed, Kael says, as if granting a play the right to begin in his theater. But remember, she is under my protection. I taste the word like water I'd forgotten. Protection. It is not the same as possession. The distinction is everything. They proceed. The charges are lines I've heard before, consorting with rogues, aiding escapees, trespassing borders, withholding information, unbecoming of an Omega. Law likes its phrases neat. It doesn't know what to do with bleeding stories. I say nothing. Kael told me I could scream or be silent or lie, and he would find me under it. Today I choose silence, not because I am afraid, because I have learned how to speak without giving the enemies a transcript. When they finish with their neatness, Kael asks one question. What do you fear? The hall stirs. The High Counselor blinks. We fear nothing. We govern. You fear, he says, voice dropping like a net over the water. That the pack will learn I can keep it safe without you. You fear that love can make law kinder without making it weak. You fear wolves who remember why we called the moon our mother, and not our judge. You speak poetry where you should speak policy, the High Counselor says. Law that cannot survive poetry, Kael replies, is already broken. Silence again. The kind that decides what the next decade will look like. Then, noise. A runner bursts through a side door, breathless, eyes wide with weather. He looks too young to be carrying anything but his own name. He looks at the council, then at Kael, and nods the way boys do when they have brought a storm to men and hope the men remember how to build. Alpha, he gasps. Western border, smoke. His voice cracks. A healer's hut. My bones go cold before my skin does. Leora. The world tilts, and the edge of it cuts me open. I make a sound I have never made in front of the council. It is small, and made of 1,000 nights of telling myself morning is enough. Kael is already moving. He doesn't look to see if I follow. He knows. The bond slams through me like a door flung open inside a house I thought empty. I stumble, catch, run. We do not wait for permission. The council calls after us in voices that have never been fast enough. The doors yawn for us and we are gone. The hall with its chairs and traps shrinking behind like a mouth that forgot it needs teeth to speak. The corridors blur. The courtyard hammers under our feet. He doesn't shift. Neither do I. We run as men and women when wolves would be faster, because there are times the body must remember what it can do without magic. The gate roars open, and the world explodes into trees and air and roads that know my footing. I run at his side, breath ragged, heart a dirge and a drum. Smoke stains the horizon like a bruise. It isn't the vast choke of a forest burning. It's cleaner, more deliberate. A single kindle turned into a message. We know where to hurt you. Kael's jaw hardens until it could cut the wind. Hold, he growls, not to me, to himself, to the wolf inside him that wants to shred distance like cloth. We crest the ridge that opens to the western flats. The path tumbles down into the bowl of trees where a lone roof shows between branches like a prayer folded wrong. I taste metal. I taste old snow. I taste the night I ran, only now the road bends toward me instead of away. We drop into the copse like a blade into a sheath. The air turns to heat and ash and grief. The hut is not flame anymore. It's a blackened shell. The door is a charred smile with no teeth. We are 2 steps from the ruin when a figure staggers out of the stand of birch to the left, smoke making her hair into a halo of ghosts. Leora, alive, soot-smeared and furious, which is the only kind of alive she has time for. My legs go weak. I catch myself on a burned post and nearly laugh at the smell of it because grief is a philosopher with bad timing. She sees me and hitches her breath the way she did when the boy laughed first. "Too slow," she says, and it is not an accusation. It is a diagnosis. "Where?" I ask. And the word does not sound like my voice. She presses her lips together, then opens her hands with the remnants of a lullaby curled into the lines of her palms. "Safe," she answers. Then to Kael, with a gaze that measures kings the same as she measures fevers. "You took your time." Kael bows his head to her. It is not a gesture of power. It is an acknowledgement that some thrones are made of quilts and broth. "I won't be late again," he says. She studies him, then nods once. "No, you won't." Behind her, from the back of the birches, a small sound. Not a cry, a question learning how to be a name. I turn toward it. My bones turn with me. My heart outruns every law that ever tried to teach it limits. The smoke lifts its hand from the world and the clearing becomes a room. Leora steps aside. He stands there, uncertain, brave. Golden eyes in a face that learned sunlight early. Hair that refuses to lay flat, as if the wind has already made promises to it. His hands are dirty. Dirt from the ground, not from the ruin. His mouth is set the way mine is when I am trying not to cry in front of strangers. He is 3 years of all the mornings I kept him alive. The past howls through me so hard I have to reach for a tree to keep from falling. The present answers steady as breath. The boy tilts his head, considering the 2 wolves in human skin frozen at the edge of his world. He looks at me first. Of course he does. His face opens. He takes 1 step, then another. "Mama," he says, and the trees remember spring. I go to my knees in the charred grass because standing is something lesser hearts do at moments like this. He barrels into me, and his little arms lock around my neck with an authority no council can sanction away. My mouth finds his hair and learns again the old perfect scent. Smoke after rain. Cedar warmed by thumb and finger. The hint of storm. I wonder if I will ever breathe anything else again. Kael doesn't move. He is standing with the steel and softness of a man who has finally reached the edge of his map. He is not allowed to be astonished in public. He is astonished anyway. My son pulls back and looks at me, searching me for the truth adult mouths hoard. I cup his face and nod that yes, 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 you are real, and I am here, and we will write the next breath together. Then I turn him gently, carefully, toward the man who is trying to remember how to be only one thing at a time. The boy studies Kael the way he studies beetles, serious, generous, willing to be delighted. The bond in me roars so loudly I almost miss the smaller sound it makes, the crack as it slides into a new shape, not just between 2, but 3. Kael lowers himself to a crouch. The movement is unpracticed, reverent. He doesn't reach. He opens his hands and lets the air decide. "Hello," he says, and the word has more tremor in it than I have ever heard from him. "I am..." The boy blinks, thinks for a moment, then supplies, matter of fact as weather. "Papa." Kael's breath breaks. He closes his eyes as if the syllables are light after a long tunnel. When he opens them, they are full of 1,000 things I cannot name fast enough. Fear, awe, worship, a new kind of vow that does not need words to be legal. He doesn't touch the boy. He lets the boy step forward on his own 2 dirty feet and place 1 palm on Kael's cheek, the way he does to test if a skillet is cool enough to hold. Kael's eyes flood. He leans into that small hand like it can hold a kingdom. Behind us, Leora makes a sound that is half sob, half victory. "Good," she says to the air, to the council we cannot see, to the law that is too far away to ruin this exact breath. Good. Somewhere in the brush, a twig cracks. Not a harmless forest sound. The kind with a purpose. Leora's head snaps around. Her hand goes to the hidden knife she keeps tucked under her shawl, the one she uses to cut bread, and when necessary, lies. Kael's wolf surges. It takes everything in him not to shift. Scouts, he says, muzzle in his voice, though his mouth remains human, not mine. My son slides closer to my hip, small fingers fisting the fabric of my dress. The day holds its breath. Kael rises, smooth and slow, and the alpha pours back over him like armor. He looks at me for one compressed heartbeat. So much passes that we will have to name later. Agreement, strategy, a promise that he will be the first between us and teeth. He turns toward the trees. The past howls again. But this time, the present howls back, and I understand. Finally, that surviving was the preface. Living begins with war. The sound comes again, twigs breaking in a measured rhythm, not the clumsy snap of deer or the skitter of fox. It is a language I recognize from nights spent making maps out of danger, men who believe the forest will obey their feet. Kael pivots toward the birches, shoulders widening in a way that is more instinct than posture. The air drops a degree, not from weather but from intent. Leora slides to my side without seeming to move at all, her hand finding the arch of my back, steadying me the way she steadied me when the contractions came. Quiet. Certain, dangerous. Inside the stand, she breathes. 3 to the right, 2 behind. Another circling downwind. I taste metal. Council? Leora's mouth thins. Or the prettiest rumor hunters ever to grow scales. My son presses his face into my skirt, fingers hooking the cloth the way newborns hook a mother's skin. The heat of him anchors me to this moment even as fear tries to float me out of my own body. I curl one hand around his head and feel his hair, warm, stubborn, smelling like soot and rain, as if confirmation could build a wall. Kael shakes once, a subtle tremor that tells me the wolf inside him is pushing at the skin. He keeps it leashed. This close to the border, an alpha's full shift would ring like a bell. He gives me a glance, brief and bright, and I hear the sentence without sound. I will go first. No, Leora says without looking at him. They will expect the alpha to strike. Let them taste surprise. Leora, Kael warns. Leora, Kael warns. Kael, she returns, equal parts scold and psalm. You can break necks. I can break assumptions. Let the girl speak, the girl. I haven't been a girl since law turned my womb into a battlefield, but I know what she means. The smallest thing is sometimes the sharpest knife. What do you need me to do? I ask. Leora hands me the one sheathed blade she carries that isn't for bread. Its weight is honest. No ornament, only purpose. Breathe, she says, and listen. Her fingers squeeze once around my wrist. Remember the thing you think is weakness. She tips her chin toward my ribs. It is not. The brush parts 30 paces ahead. 2 men in council gray step out with crossbows cradled like polite threats. They are the kind of wolves who only run when watched. Behind them, leaves stir, a whisper of more bodies unfurling from shadow. Kael moves forward 3 steps, hands open to his sides, palms visible, kingly, careful. His voice is iron-hammered thin. You have no writ to be here. The taller of the 2 bows a fraction. We bear the law, Alpha. The law travels poorly without my permission, Kael says. Our permission, the other corrects, chin high, eyes cutting to me and Leora, and the small figure pressed to my leg. His nostrils flare. He catches a thread of smoke, a smear of cedar, a thin, sharp line of storm. His pupils dilate. He doesn't know what he's smelling yet. He knows enough to be afraid. He smiles to hide it. We're only here for a rumor, he says. A whisper with legs. You brought bolts for a whisper? Kael asks. How brave. The tall one nods toward Leora's blackened doorway. Strange how rumors like to burn. Leora steps forward. All grandmother and knife. Strange how fires start in places no lamps are lit. The men glance at each other, the way mediocre hunters do when their prey speaks in complete sentences. The shorter one lifts his bow a fraction higher. The taller one adjusts his aim as if the air between us has changed density. Hand over the traitor, the tall one says, as if it's nothing, as if the word isn't a trap door. We'll see that her end is quick, will you? Kael asks softly. His gaze doesn't move from the tall man's throat. What a generous foreign policy to enact in my forest. Your forest, the man says. and manages to make your sound like an error he intends to correct. My son trembles, the small shudder of a body holding in a cry. I kneel, cupping his face. Do you remember our game? I whisper. The one where the wind needs help? He nods, eyes huge. He's never played it with an audience holding crossbows. He doesn't understand that we're singing to bones now, not breezes. He only knows the rules. We make the world quiet enough to hear what matters. Now, I breathe, just like the birch hollow. He presses his lips together and takes a breath so serious it nearly breaks me. I mirror him. Leora's hand lands lightly on my shoulder. A benediction or a brace, I can't tell. The shorter hunter barks a laugh. What is this? A little prayer? His bow rises a handspan more. That's when the forest shivers, not with claws, with attention. I let the breath fall out of me the way Leora taught me the night pain came in tides. Slow, steady, surrendering with teeth. The sound is barely more than a hum. It threads into the leaves and the loam and the old deadwood under the moss. It is older than law and younger than my son. It's the sound my body made when I first held him, when the world clicked into a different orbit. An Omega's call. We are taught it is nothing. We are told it is a soft thing, good only for pups and peace. But I have learned the other names for softness. Key, cradle, knife. The trees answer me with 1,000 small grips, tightening bark, shifting shade, a hush that swallows the metallic chitter of crossbow strings. What it does to the men is simple. It reveals them to themselves. The tall one blinks, sudden sweat at his hairline. The short one's aim drifts as if his arms have forgotten that violence is a discipline, not a default. Kael's eyes flash. Not at them, at me. It is not surprise. It is recognition. His voice comes low and precise. You will lower your weapons. The men grit their teeth against the compulsion. They are trained for alpha command. Their minds know the trick of throwing rocks into that river. They are not trained for the quiet seam I've opened in the day. They are not trained for the way fear sounds when it finally hears itself. Last warning, Kael says, and his wolf edges the words, a growl braided into law. The shorter one breaks first. His bow dips. The taller one hisses a curse at him and steadies his own shot on Kael's heart. My son makes a sound I have never heard from him. High, sharp, a small animal between hurt and fury. The air snaps. The bond between Kael and me yanks like a rope. Some third strand threads it, the child's fear knitting with our vow. For one heartbeat, it feels as if the world has leaned toward our little triangle to listen. The tall man looses. I am already moving. The body remembers how to be faster than thought, when the arrow belongs in a future you refuse to live. I throw my shoulder into Kael's chest. The bolt sings past his ribs and bites the post where my hand held moments before. Heat slices my upper arm, a shallow rake of iron. It burns. It doesn't matter. Kael's restraint snaps. He doesn't fully shift. He blooms. Claws don't sprout from his fingers. They remember themselves. His teeth lengthen into the idea of tearing. He closes the distance to the tall man with an ease that makes a lie of space. He doesn't kill him. He breaks the bow, then the man's knee, then the brittle courage in his eyes. The shorter one bolts, literally, and the birches set their white bodies like bars. He pinballs between trunks and ends up on his face, winded. Weapons flung! Call them back! Kael snarls to the green, to the ground, to anything near enough to obey him that isn't me. I gather my son into my arms and rise. We need to go, Leora says, as calm as soup in a storm. She's already scanning the tree line for the figure that was circling downwind. This was just the mouth of the trap. Kael steps away from the hunter curled around his knee and steps toward me in the same motion, the transition so smooth, it does not deserve the heavy word mercy, though it is that. He takes my bleeding arm without asking and tears a strip from his shirt with his teeth. Wolf peeking through, chivalry wearing fangs. He wraps the cut in movements so efficient I realize he's done this 100 times in other wars. He ties the knot with a jerk and looks at me not like a thing to be saved, but like a partner who bled on the right altar. Hidden road, Leora says. Old boar path behind the spring. She jerks her chin to the left. It drops into the ravine that forgets to be on maps. Kael nods. His eyes flick to the tree line again. There's one more, he says. 2. Leora corrects. One with good boots and worse thoughts. One who thinks he's invisible because he's been told so by men who don't know what reflections are. Left, I whisper, pointing with my chin. By the crooked ash. Kael smiles without moving his mouth. You always did see the second shadow. I do not allow warmth. Not now. Move. We move. Leora takes point with a speed that makes liars of her years. Kael slides to my right, a moving wall. I hold our son and keep my breath the way the old women taught me, to carry both weight and voice. The birches hold their white breath as we pass, thin bark flaking like ash. The spring's voice appears ahead, silver, insistent. Behind it, the boar path is exactly where Leora promised, a dark seam between ferns where hoof and hope have worn away. We slip into the ravine's throat. Sound changes here. It becomes a round thing, rolling along rock, losing edges. The air is damp and tastes like buried iron and old moss. Roots stitch the walls into a rough ladder. Leora's skirts catch. She rips them free with a curse that makes the ravine blush. My son shifts in my arms to peek back over my shoulder. He is not crying. He is learning the shape of danger the way other children learn letters, by tracing them with his fingers. I kiss his temple and feel the heat of him steadying my hands. Footfalls above. The one with good boots. He jogs along the lip, uncertain of where we dropped. Kael lifts his head, maps the echo, judges the distance the way his grandfather taught him by tossing stones into wells. He motions Leora low and steps over me, up along a protruding root. And then he's gone. No longer beside me, but a shadow moving along shadow, silent as a debt. The booted man leans over the ravine at exactly the wrong place. Kael's hand catches his ankle, and the hunter hits the ground beside us so abruptly he forgets where his body ends. Kael extracts the man's breath with a forearm, then his weapons with a courtesy that looks almost tender. He leaves him alive but empty. The other hunter, Mr. Invisible, takes the hint and evaporates the way cowards do when faced with consequences they can't narrate themselves out of. We descend until the ravine opens its mouth into a bowl of ferns and low trees that smell like rain saved for later. Leora stops at a slab of rock half swallowed by moss and runs her fingers along its edge. A seam reveals itself, a door without a door. She shoves. Stone grinds a sigh. Cold air rolls out, tasting of earth that has never met sun. A root cellar? Kael asks. A sanctuary, Leora says, from before law decided which holes were holy. Will it hold? I ask. Long enough for me to decide who I want to be angry at the most, she says, and slips inside. The chamber beyond is small, domed, dry as a secret kept by people who knew why secrets matter. Wooden shelves hold jars that glow faintly with something like moonlight. Herbs dried when summer still had teeth. Tinctures honed in glass the color of lake water. A pallet of woven reeds. A pair of blankets that smell like clean in winter, in that order. I lay my son down on the pallet, and he rolls to his side, thumb finding the corner of the blanket out of habit. The tremor in his limbs settles by degrees. He stares at me as if waiting for the part of the story where I lie, and tell him everything is fine. I kneel so my face is level with his, and give him the version of truth that children deserve. We're safe for now. I'm here. I will make us safer. Papa? He asks. I look up. Kael crouches a pace away, hands flexing on his knees to keep from reaching. I'm here, he says, voice ruined in a way that builds cathedrals. I will come back if I go. I will tell you before I leave. The boy nods solemnly, satisfied with the terms. He reaches out, touches Kael's knuckles. The touch is so light it shouldn't matter. It splits Kael open anyway. The cut along my arm throbs. Kael notices the delayed pain like it's a crime scene. Let me, he says, already reaching for the jar that looks like resin and mountain. I pull my arm back an inch. The old fight rises in me, stupid and loyal. Protect yourself from the thing you want. Leora flicks my ear with the same accuracy she used to measure doses. Let him heal what he broke, she says. Kael doesn't flinch at the indictment. He scoops a fingertip of salve and meets my eyes for permission. An alpha asking, not taking. I nod. He spreads the balm with steady pressure, his thumb anchoring the skin so the sting finds purpose. It smells like pine and smoke and bitter truth. He wraps the binding snug, then smoother, tucking the end with unnecessary care. When his fingers leave, the burn has become warmth. Thank you, I say. Thank you. He answers, and I realize we are not speaking about the same thing, but that we are both right. Leora busies herself at the shelves, pulling jars like constellations. You have until dusk, she says. Then the ravine forgets that it is yours. If the council sent boys, they will send their men. If they sent men, they will send dogs. If they send dogs, they will send prayers to excuse themselves. Kael stands. He is king again. Regret hung under the crown like bells. I have to go back, he says, as if confessing a hunger instead of a duty. If I don't put a leash on that room, they'll come with a leash for us. I know, I say. The words are ash and meat. Be louder than them and quieter than yourself. He huffs something like a laugh, low and brief. I will try. He looks at our son one last time. The boy is fighting sleep the way armies fight winters. His lashes lower. His mouth softens. Kael reaches out, then stops a breath away. He leaves the touch in the air, where it can keep watch without waking what it wants. I need his name, he says, voice hushed, reverent. If I have to speak him into rooms that don't deserve him, I need a word that keeps him from their teeth. I swallow. We have said a dozen little names in the cottage, the silly ones that grow like vines from mispronounced moments. We have never said his true name in the open. We kept it like fire in winter. I look at Leora. She nods once. It is time, Rowan, I say. It feels like a seed cracking. We named him for the tree that watches and warns. For the one that keeps witches safe and turns bad luck into smoke. Kael's jaw moves. He tastes the syllables like a vow. Rowan, he repeats, and the chamber understands, shifts, accepts. He nods to me, to Leora, to the dark earth that has agreed to hide us a little while longer. Keep him breathing, he says. I'll keep the world busy. He turns to go. I catch his sleeve. The bond flares between my fingers and his skin, a live wire braided with 3 threads now. If you have to burn the council, I say, don't forget to leave a light to find your way back. He looks down at my hand on him and then up at me. You're my light, he says. It should be a line from a story that ends badly. In his mouth, it is a map. He leaves. The stone sighs back into place with the sound of a shard returning to a vessel. Silence folds itself over us, heavy, but not cruel. Leora sits. I sit. Rowan sleeps. I should sleep. I should eat the bread Leora pushes into my hand. I should plan a dozen roads and the lies to scatter along them. I do none of those. I sit in the dim and let my hearing grow long. Far above, the day rearranges its knives. Somewhere to the east, a bell rings, thin as a vein. Somewhere to the north, wolves test the wind. When Rowan stirs, he makes a small sound, a question that trusts an answer. I lay my palm on his back and hum the tune I thought was a lullaby. It isn't. It's a spell disguised as comfort. It tells his heartbeat where to go. It tells my fear how to lie down. Time becomes water with rocks under it. Leora dozes in snatches. Old women are better at war than history admits. I count Rowan's breaths to keep my own from wandering. At some point, the light that slips under the door flap changes texture. Dusk is walking toward us, long-legged, lean. Footsteps. One set. Tired ones, weight uneven, favoring the left. The knock is not a knock. It's the sound Kael taught me when I was too proud to learn passwords. 3, then 2, then stillness. The stillness is the word. Leora stands with her knife drawn anyway because love without suspicion is not love, it is theater. I press my palm flat to the stone. Who are you? I ask, because law might be listening to the answer. A man learning to be a father, Kael says through rock, and a king who has decided that fear makes poor law. Leora slides the catch. The door shifts. Kael steps in, shoulders lowered, eyes ringed darker, hair damp with the kind of rain that only falls inside halls. Blood freckles one sleeve, not his mostly. He brings the smell of council smoke and arguments that burned all the way through their first excuses. What did you do? I ask, the words a prayer and a sentence both. I told them the truth, he says, and when they asked for proof, I showed them something better. What? He looks at Rowan. His voice softens. What mercy looks like when it has teeth. Leora exhales through her nose like a kettle taken off the boil at the right moment. And I bought us one night, he says. Maybe 2, enough to choose where to bleed. He sinks to a crouch the way mountains would if they were trying to be kind. His hand hovers over Rowan's hair and then, this time, lands. Rowan sighs in his sleep, as if a missing piece has returned. Tomorrow, Kael says. Not looking up, not needing to, because promise does not require witnesses. I end the council. The pup's cry answers him then. Not with sound, not with tears. With the slow, even breaths of a child who trusts the dark room because the people in it have decided, finally, to be braver than their fear. Outside, the night learns our names. Inside, we learn how to keep them. The first thing I noticed when Kael returned was that he didn't look like victory. He looked like aftermath. His eyes still burned gold, but the fire inside them was no longer the kind that kills. It was the kind that remembers every body it burned. His shirt clung to him, darkened with ash, his knuckles bruised, the scent of council halls, blood, smoke, and old power still tangled in his skin. He closed the cellar door behind him and leaned against the wall like a man learning to breathe again. For a long while, none of us spoke. Leora sat near the shelves, her knife half clean, half wet, pretending not to watch him. Rowan slept curled in his blanket, one small hand clutching the air as if it still belonged to my hair. And I stood, caught between fight and forgiveness, watching the man who once chained me now standing in front of me, unarmored. He spoke first. I told them you ran because I ordered you to. The words struck harder than any whip. What? I told them it was my command, he said quietly. That I sent you beyond the border to deliver a message to the rogues, to test their loyalty. That you vanished because I failed to protect you from them. My throat tightened. You lied to them. He nodded once. For the first time in my reign, yes. His eyes flicked to Rowan's sleeping form. For something worth lying for. I wanted to hate him for how easily he said it. For how that tone, calm and heavy, still melted my defenses like frost meeting dawn. But there was something else in his voice, too. Shame. Coiled and patient, waiting for judgment. You risked the council's wrath for me, I said. For a traitor. For the truth they don't deserve. He moved closer. Every step felt like a confession. His scent filled the small space again. Cedar, smoke, blood, and something softer beneath it all, the memory of spring. When they questioned you? I asked, my voice trembling despite the anger trying to steady it. They didn't dare. Not yet. His lips curved in a humorless smile. The High Counselor called me reckless. Said an alpha who lies for an omega doesn't deserve a crown. I told her a crown that demands betrayal isn't worth wearing. He looked down at his hands. The gold of his eyes dimmed. And then I broke the table in half. Despite myself, a sound escaped me. Half laugh, half sob. Still dramatic. He glanced up. You used to like that about me. I used to be foolish. His gaze softened. You were brave. The air between us grew heavy. My pulse was louder than the flicker of the candle. I could feel the bond pulsing. Not as a chain this time, but as a heartbeat that refused to die. Kael, I whispered. Why are you here? You should be running. If the council suspects, they do. The silence that followed was the kind that crawled down my spine. What did they say? They gave me an ultimatum. He drew in a slow breath. Bring you back in chains. Or step down. And you chose you, he said simply. The word hung in the air like thunder before the strike. I didn't move. Couldn't. His eyes were steady, his voice too calm for the storm it carried. Kael, you can't. I already did. He took another step, the space between us dissolving into memory. The throne was never mine. It was theirs. I just sat in the chair while they whispered law into my ear. They told me who to love, who to punish, who to protect. But today I remembered why the moon chose me in the first place. Not to obey, Mira. To lead. The wolf in his voice rumbled low, proud, protective. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream that this was madness, that the pack would turn on him, that his sacrifice wasn't worth it. But the words wouldn't come, because part of me, the part that still loved him, believed he was right. He stopped just in front of me. When they asked why I would ruin everything for an Omega, he said, I told them because she was the only one who ever made me more than a title. My breath hitched. I felt the tears before I saw them. Stop, I said weakly. Don't do this. You don't get to— I do, he cut in softly, because I need you to know. I never wanted to chain you. That night— his voice broke. That night I didn't even know you'd been taken. They told me you'd run. They showed me forged letters, Mira. Words you didn't write, promising loyalty to rogues. I believed them. I hunted you across half the realm thinking you'd betrayed me. My heart pounded. And when you caught me, you still believed it, his jaw clenched, until I saw your eyes. He reached out, his hand hovering near my cheek but not touching. You didn't look at me with guilt. You looked at me with grief. A tear slipped down, uninvited. He caught it on his thumb like instinct. That was when I knew, he whispered, that the betrayal wasn't yours. It was mine. I stepped back, needing air. You don't know what it was like, Kael. The fear, the running, the nights I had to keep him quiet while soldiers marched past the window. The lies I told to keep him safe, I know, he said quietly. I've been living them in reverse. He looked around the small chamber, his gaze resting on Rowan again. I lost 3 years believing you were gone. Now I don't even know how to breathe around you. You shouldn't have come, I said again, softer this time. The pack needs you, he shook his head. The pack needs truth. If that destroys them, then they were never wolves, just men in borrowed skin. The sound of rain began above us, slow, patient drops hitting the earth like a heartbeat. The scent of wet soil filled the cellar, mingling with smoke and fear and something faintly hopeful. Leora cleared her throat gently. If you're both done rewriting the laws of the moon, we might discuss how to survive till sunrise. Kael smiled faintly. You've always been the only one who can interrupt me without losing a head. She shrugged. Age earns its privileges. Now tell me, Alpha, what happens when the council realizes you didn't bring her back? They'll come, he said simply. But not tonight. They'll need time to gather their loyalists, to convince the pack that I've lost my mind. And have you? I asked. He turned to me, eyes burning. If loving you is madness, then yes. I've gone insane. Something cracked inside me then, not from pain, but release. 3 years of silence, of hiding, of pretending I didn't still feel his presence in every dream. I stepped forward before I could stop myself. My hand rose to his chest, to the heartbeat pounding there like a storm. You don't even know how dangerous this is, I said. He caught my hand, pressing it flat against his heart. Then let them come for me. For a moment the world narrowed, just him, me, and the quiet rhythm of Rowan's breathing nearby. I won't lose you again, he whispered. Not to law, not to fear, not to the ghosts we created. I wanted to say I didn't believe him. I wanted to remind him that oaths are fragile things in the mouth of kings. But his eyes, his eyes, they were the same golden promise they'd been the first night he kissed me beneath the Frost River's light. So I didn't speak. I let him pull me closer, his forehead resting against mine, the air between us trembling with everything we couldn't say. Then Rowan stirred. A soft whimper, a small cry. Kael froze. His breath hitched. Slowly, he turned his head toward the sound. The pup rolled over, still half asleep, mumbling something only the moon could understand. And Kael, the alpha, the warrior, the king, went completely still. He looked at Rowan as if the world had just rewritten itself. His nostrils flared once, twice. The scent hit him. I saw it happen. That exact moment his wolf recognized the truth his heart already knew. Mira, he breathed, voice trembling. He's mine, I didn't answer. Couldn't. The tears came too fast. Kael took a single step toward the boy. Our son. The words were reverent, like prayer. He sank to his knees beside the pallet, trembling fingers reaching out but stopping just before touching Rowan's hair. The pup stirred again, blinked, and looked up at him, curious, unafraid. Kael's lips parted. A small, incredulous laugh escaped him. He has your eyes. I choked on a sob. No, he has yours. Rowan tilted his head, studying the stranger with fascination. Mama? Yes, love. My voice broke. This is Kael's voice caught. Papa. The boy blinked, then smiled. Papa? Kael's breath shattered. He looked at me, eyes wet. The goddess forgive me, he whispered. I would burn the world for this moment. Rowan reached out, his tiny hand brushing Kael's face. The alpha closed his eyes, leaning into the touch like a starving man finding food. Leora turned away, wiping her eyes with the back of her sleeve. Moon help us all, she muttered. The pack's doomed now. He's human again. Kael laughed quietly, the sound of years of regret cracking open. Maybe that's what they needed. He looked at me again, his voice low. He deserves better than what we were. He deserves the truth, I said. He nodded. Then he'll have it. The words scared me more than the council ever could. Kael, no. Rowan tilted his head, studying the stranger with fascination. Mama? Yes, love. My voice broke. This is Kael's voice caught. Papa. The boy blinked, then smiled. Papa? Kael's breath shattered. He looked at me, eyes wet. The goddess forgive me, he whispered. I would burn the world for this moment. Rowan reached out, his tiny hand brushing Kael's face. The alpha closed his eyes, leaning into the touch like a starving man finding food. Leora turned away, wiping her eyes with the back of her sleeve. Moon help us all, she muttered. The pack's doomed now. He's human again. Kael laughed quietly, the sound of years of regret cracking open. Maybe that's what they needed. He looked at me again, his voice low. He deserves better than what we were. He deserves the truth, I said. He nodded. Then he'll have it. The words scared me more than the council ever could. Kael, no. He turned to me, determination hardening his jaw. They will not take him. Or you. I'll go back to Bloodcrest by dawn. Alone. I'll end it. I grabbed his arm. End it how? With blood. They'll kill you. Maybe, he said. But I won't let them make him grow up in a world that punishes love. You can't fight them all. I don't have to, he said softly. I just have to show the pack who the real enemy is. He brushed a tear from my cheek. Sleep tonight, Mira. Hold him close. Tomorrow I bring the dawn. And before I could stop him, he bent down, kissed Rowan's forehead, and then mine. A touch that felt like both promise and goodbye. When he left, the cellar seemed to exhale with him. The night swallowed his scent, but the echo of it clung to me. Cedar, rain, storm. I sat beside Rowan's bed, tracing the outline of his small fingers. Leora sat across the room, her knife glinting faintly. Do you think he can win? I whispered. She didn't look up. Win? She sheathed her knife. No, but he might change the game before he dies. Her words hit like prophecy. Outside, the rain thickened, and somewhere far off, I heard a wolf's howl rise, long, low, aching. Not a call for battle. A vow. And I knew that dawn would not come quietly. The night tasted like iron and smoke. I knew something had gone wrong before the first howl cut through the forest. The air itself had changed, thicker, heavier, as if the moon were holding its breath. Even underground, I could feel the pull, the shift in energy. The moment the bond between us flared to life like a wound reopening. Kael was in pain. He'd left hours ago, before dawn had fully broken. He hadn't looked back, and I hadn't asked him to. Some goodbyes are better when you pretend they aren't. I'd watched him go until the shadows swallowed him whole, every step echoing like a heartbeat fading in reverse. Now, as the blood moon rose red and merciless above Bloodcrest, every nerve in my body burned with his name. Leora paced near the door, muttering charms beneath her breath, her knife glinting in the candlelight. The air's wrong, she said. Too still. Even the crickets are hiding. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My eyes were fixed on Rowan, sleeping fitfully beside the wall, a soft whimper leaving his lips every few breaths. The bond between him and Kael was still forming, thin, fragile threads of recognition. But tonight, even that delicate thread trembled. "Tell me what you feel," Leora said quietly, her eyes narrowing at me. I pressed my palm against the ground. "The bond is bleeding." She froze. "Bleeding?" I nodded, trembling. "It's how the wolf feels when his body is breaking, when the mate mark is trying to heal something it can't reach." The sound came again, another howl, longer this time. It wasn't Kael's voice, not exactly, but something inside me knew it belonged to him. The sound tore through the night like confession, wild and raw, and when it faded, silence screamed louder. I staggered, gripping the wall for balance. "Mira?" Leora caught my arm. "He's fighting," I gasped. "The council. They're not giving him a trial. They've turned it into a hunt." Leora's eyes hardened. "Then he'll give them a war." But I shook my head. "No. He's not fighting to win. He's fighting to protect us." She cursed under her breath and began gathering herbs and vials, her movements sharp, deliberate. "If he falls, the pack will smell his blood by dawn. They'll come for you. For the boy." "I know." "Then we have to run." I turned toward her, my voice breaking. "And where will we run that the moon can't find us? He's still my mate, Leora. If he dies under that sky, I'll feel it. I'll die with him." Leora stopped. Her gaze softened for the first time in hours. "Then pray he doesn't." I tried. I really did. But the moon above us was no longer silver. It was crimson, its light dripping across the forest like spilled wine. The blood moon had risen, and with it came truth. No secrets, no lies, no masks. Under that light, every hidden bond burned to be seen. Rowan whimpered again. His tiny hand reached into the air, clutching at nothing. "Mama?" "I'm here, my love," I whispered, sitting beside him. His forehead glistened with sweat, and, when I brushed his hair back, my fingers came away glowing faintly red. The blood moon was marking him too. Kael's blood ran through his veins. The moon knew it. The world would soon know it too. The air shifted again. The bond flared so violently I gasped, clutching my chest. Images flooded me, flashes that weren't mine. Stone halls bathed in red light, wolves circling a throne. Kael standing alone, half-shifted, his skin streaked with blood, and his eyes, gods, those eyes, blazing gold even as the moon above him bled scarlet. I saw the council, their robes torn, their voices echoing in the ancient chamber. The High Counselor raised her staff toward him. "You broke the law," she snarled, and Kael, my Kael, lifted his head and smiled through bloodied teeth. "Then let the law break with me." The vision hit me like fire. I fell forward, coughing, choking on the scent of smoke that wasn't real. Leora was beside me in an instant, her hand pressed to my back. "What did you see?" "They're killing him," I gasped. "They've bound him in silver chains. He's burning." Rowan woke with a cry, sitting up abruptly. "Papa!" The word ripped through the air, high and trembling. The bond responded. A pulse, a shudder, then silence. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. The candles flickered out. Even Leora went still. "Kael?" I whispered into the void. "Kael." No answer. Only the low hum of the earth, like a grave sighing shut. Leora met my eyes. "Mira." But before she could speak again, the ground beneath us trembled. The jars on the shelves rattled, the air thickening with pressure. Then, through the cracks in the cellar wall, Light seeped in. Red light. Moonlight. The blood moon had found us. It poured into the room like a living thing, brushing across my skin, igniting every vein with heat. The mark on my shoulder, Kael's mark, blazed white-hot, then turned crimson, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. "Mira!" Leora shouted. "You're glowing!" I couldn't answer. The bond was roaring again, no longer silent or weak, but furious, desperate, alive. He wasn't dead. Not yet. I stumbled to my feet. "He's still fighting!" "Mira, you can't go. I have to." Leora grabbed my wrist. "If you leave, they'll scent you. The whole pack will know who you are." "Then let them," I shouted, the words spilling out like a promise. "If they want their alpha, they'll find him through me." Before she could stop me, I threw open the cellar door. The night above was red as blood, the trees painted in shades of fire. The moon hung low, swollen and trembling, casting light that made the forest look like a dream of hell. I ran. Every step hurt. Every breath tore through me. But the bond guided me through the ravine, across the ridge, up toward the heart of Bloodcrest. The wolves were howling now, dozens of them, their cries colliding into a storm of sound that shook the heavens. I could feel their confusion, their fear. They could feel him, too. The blood moon was binding us all together. When I reached the edge of the fortress clearing, I stopped. The sight before me stole the last of my breath. The council's courtyard was ablaze, half fire, half moonlight. Wolves circled a single figure in the center. Kael. His body was torn, his chest bleeding, his skin marked with silver burns. But his eyes, those golden eyes, still glowed with fury. The High Counselor stood opposite him, her staff raised high. "You defy the moon's law," she cried. Kael laughed, a sound full of blood and heartbreak. "No, I follow the moon's will. You just forgot what she sounds like." The staff cracked with light. Lightning lanced across the courtyard, slamming into Kael's chest. He staggered, fell to one knee. "Kael!" I screamed. His head snapped toward me. Even across the distance, our eyes met. The bond surged, snapping the world into focus. He saw me, saw everything the council never could. "Mira," he whispered, though no sound left his lips. I heard it in my bones, and then the moon itself shifted. The red glow brightened until the entire sky bled. The ground shuddered. The wolves began to snarl, snapping at each other in confusion. The High Counselor turned upward, her face pale. "The blood moon. What is this?" Kael rose slowly to his feet, his chains melting under the heat of his skin. The mark on his neck flared to life, pulsing in sync with mine. "You wanted truth," he growled, his voice carrying through the howling. "Let the moon show you." The air split. A flash of red light ripped through the courtyard. And then, silence. Every wolf froze. Every gaze turned toward me. The mark on my shoulder blazed bright enough to cut the dark, glowing like liquid fire. The wind tore through my hair, and the scent of Kael, storm, cedar, blood, wrapped around me like armor. The bond snapped open completely. The truth spilled into the world. 2 heartbeats echoed through the clearing, his and mine. And then a third. Small, steady, undeniable. The pack gasped as one. Their wolves stirred, whining in confusion. The High Counselor's eyes went wide with horror. "Impossible," she whispered. Kael smiled through blood. "No, divine." Rowan's cry carried through the forest, clear and fierce, reaching even here. My son's voice under the blood moon, calling to the father he barely knew. The sound rolled over the pack like thunder. Every wolf dropped to its knees. Even the High Counselor faltered, her staff trembling. Kael's chains fell away with a clatter. He turned toward me, his body staggering, his breath ragged. "You came. I always do," I whispered. He took a step forward, then another. His legs gave out before he reached me, collapsing to the ground. I ran to him, catching his face in my hands. His skin burned under my touch. Every breath shallow. "Stay with me," I begged. He smiled faintly. "I told you I'd bring the dawn." The moonlight flared one last time, bathing the entire courtyard in crimson light. And in that glow, I saw the truth. The mark on my shoulder had spread, forming a second ring of gold that pulsed in harmony with his heart. The moon goddess herself had witnessed the bond, and she had blessed it. Kael shuddered, his eyes fluttering closed. "If I don't wake, don't you dare," I whispered. He exhaled softly. "Then remember me and him." His hand fell, his breath fading. The blood moon howled once, then broke, its light splintering into silver shards that rained down like ashes. I screamed his name, clutching him as the sky turned pale and the wolves howled their grief. Somewhere behind me, Leora appeared, Rowan in her arms. She looked down at Kael, then at me. "He's not gone," she said. "Not yet. The moon doesn't end what she blesses." I looked up through tears. "Then what is this?" Leora's gaze lifted to the horizon. The red light was fading, but the air still vibrated with power. "This," she said softly, "is the beginning." Dawn did not arrive. It gathered, drop by trembling drop, until the night remembered how to soften. I held Kael while the blood moon bled itself pale, while the courtyard cooled from rage to ash. His skin was too hot under my palms, heat humming through him like a forge that had been fed grief for fuel. Leora knelt at his other side with a jar of something that smelled like pine and thunder. She pressed it into the silver burns and whispered to the goddess as if scolding an old friend. Around us, wolves hovered in a ring, some half-shifted, some still human with eyes gone wide and wet. They had seen what couldn't be hidden, the bond burning between Kael and me, the third heartbeat threading it. Even those who despised me pressed their foreheads to the stone, as if the earth had turned holy while they weren't looking. "Stay," I breathed against Kael's mouth, lending him the strength of a word. "Stay and ruin everything with me." His lashes trembled. No answer. Only the pulse at his throat, thready, stubborn, a drum on a battlefield that refused to learn silence. The High Counselor had fallen back during the blood moon's last flare. Now she stood again, thin as a blade that had been honed into cruelty. Her staff drooped, light guttering along its carved runes. She stared at Kael as if naming him would turn him back into something she could own. "This is heresy," she rasped, voice shredded by the night. "An omega enthroned by spectacle. A mongrel pup named heir by lightning." Rowan shifted in Leora's shawl where she'd tucked him to free both hands, small face solemn with the wicked concentration of children who are building a world in their heads and do not intend to be interrupted. His golden eyes, Kael's eyes, watched the High Counselor as if he were memorizing what danger looks like when it pretends to be order. "Air," Leora repeated mildly, never pausing the slow stroke of salve along Kael's burns. Funny how truth sounds treasonous when it isn't your mouth saying it. The High Counselor's gaze snapped to me. She scented the air, cedar, storm, silver heat, and flinched. The bond had left its perfume on the whole square. There was no getting it out of the stones now. "Seize her," she ordered the ring of guards who had hovered at the edges of courage all night. "Chain the Omega, take the child. The Alpha can be persuaded when the moon is sensible again." No one moved. Kael's captains, men and women with scars I knew and names I didn't, shifted their weight, not toward me, but between me and the council. One, a broad-shouldered she-wolf with a missing ear and a mouth made for telling jokes badly, said lightly, "I must have missed the part where you outrank a goddess." "Do you think divine theater changes law?" the High Counselor asked, voice steadier now, hunger seeping back into it. "It only clarifies the crime. An alpha who lies, an omega who seduces." Enough. My voice surprised me. It was not loud, but the stones heard it. The ring of wolves stilled. Somewhere, A bird tried a note and thought better of it. I rose, slow and unsteady, and the mark on my shoulder flared through the torn fabric, answering the pulse in Kael's throat. Dawn caught along its edges, gold sanding away the last red. When I spoke again, the air tasted of rain poised to fall. "You forgot what law is for," I said. "It isn't a cage for love. It's a leash for power. You held the wrong end." The High Counselor's mouth twitched. "Pretty words from a girl who ran." "I ran so your hands couldn't find my son's throat," I said. "I ran so the Alpha wouldn't choose me and lose everyone else. I ran so the goddess would have something left to bless." My voice dropped. "I'm done running." She lifted her staff as if the stick of it could pin the morning. Guards, boots scraped. Swords trembled an inch out of sheaths. Then, a sound like a flint struck in a cathedral. Kael coughed, every head turned. His chest rose shallowly. His eyes fluttered, gold dimmed but not extinguished. He tried to push himself up, and the effort sent a line of pain through him that made my vision white out. Instinct moved me. I slid an arm behind his shoulders, the other under his hand, anchoring him to the world that still wanted him. He found my face with unfocused eyes and smiled like a man remembering that water exists. "Mira," he breathed. My name was a cup tipped to his mouth. "I'm here," I said. "We're here." Rowan made a small sound, the tiny interrogative of a pup taking attendance at the end of a nightmare. Kael turned his head. When his gaze found the boy, something in him unclenched so completely it laid its shadow on the stones. Fear stepping out of a house it had lived in too long. "Papa," Rowan announced, as if we had been waiting for him to label the world correctly. Kael shut his eyes, then opened them with wet lashes and a king's mirth. "Aye," he whispered. "Papa." His hand lifted a trembling inch. Rowan reached, palm small and fierce, and pressed it to Kael's jaw. The bond arced, gold wire, live and bright, braiding us tighter than any rope. The High Counselor took a step toward us, mouth parting to spit a last command. Kael's captains moved as one. Steel sang. Spears planted. The ring closed, point turned outward. The she-wolf with the missing ear bared her teeth. "Say seize again," she invited sweetly. "See how it works this time." "Traitors," the High Counselor hissed. "Wolves," the captain corrected. "We smelled our alpha under your perfume." A murmur ran the circle, low and true. The counselors, those still standing, those clutching bruised pride and scorched hems, looked at one another and did not find an army in their faces. Kael tried to rise again. I braced him. "Don't," I whispered. "Not yet." His eyes met mine, and to my astonishment he obeyed. He let me be strength where he had always insisted on being stone. He drew breath carefully and turned his head toward the High Counselor. "This ends," he said. The voice was quiet, but it carried, not by volume, by gravity. "Not with a purge, with an ending that isn't a beginning for something worse." Her lip curled. "You think you can dismiss us with poetry? I think I can remind the pack who the law serves." He paused, gathering words the way a smith gathers sparks before deciding which are worth saving. "By right of the moon, witnessed by blood and bond, I dissolve the council." "Not today to seat another," murmurs surged. He let them, then cut them with a look. "But to leave an empty chair until we recall why we built it. And who will govern?" She mocked. "Your Omega?" "My mate," he corrected, and the word rang like a bell. "And my captains. And my people. And the old women who remember which herbs make courage and which make fools. And the young who have not yet learned to be tired." He coughed, breath hitching. I pressed my shoulder into his ribs and he steadied. "You fed the pack fear and called it order. I will feed it truth and call it law." The High Counselor lifted her staff. "You cannot unmake us." "You already unmade yourselves," I said, "when you tried to make love illegal." Her gaze flicked to Rowan. The hunger in it changed shape. It became calculation. It became Plan B. I saw it, the way wolves see the shift of a hare's hind leg before the turn. "Very well," she said, voice cooling. "Keep your mongrel. Keep your spectacle. But a kingdom cannot be rebuilt on tears and lullabies. When the next winter comes, and it will, you will beg for the old law." Then we'll survive without your blessing, Leora said, rising at last, her palms stained gold where salve had met miracle. You mistake age for authority. The High Counselor smiled, a small, mean thing that believed itself immortal. You mistake mercy for strength. She lifted the staff, runes sparking as dawn threaded through them. Let me teach you the difference.